tell Junior.
You're not Tony.
No. Yeah, I don't know where Tony was here. Oh, there he is.
She just went back over.
Morning, my watch time.
I'll give you this one, but it'd be too big on you probably. That's the first time I went before.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to call to order the City of Lawrenceburg Utility Service Board meeting for July 22nd, 2019. Roll call, please.
Board Member Tony Abbott.
Here.
Board Member Aaron Cook.
Here.
Board Member Mel Davis.
Here.
Board Member Randy Abner.
Here.
Board Member Paul Seymour Jr.
Here.
City Attorney Del Weldon is absent. In his place, Zach Anderson.
Here.
Utility Director Olin Clausen.
Present.
President Kelly Milan.
Here.
And myself.
Okay, any announcements, Mr. Clausen?
No, Your Honor, not this evening.
All right, if no announcements, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carry. Committee reports.
The only thing that I have to report on is we had an outage last night, around 2 o'clock in the morning. Crews responded, had power restored sometime after that. We're still in the process of trying to determine what caused the outage. As soon as I understand that information, I'll email the USB and let them know. The other thing that I think is should be of particular interest is I think we are currently showing a 230% increase in fiber customers. So what that means is the fiber customers, we're signing them up as quickly as we can. We're getting to those customers as quickly as we can, and getting them online as quickly as we can. So that's a very positive thing. That's all I have.
What do you want? What's the process for a customer signing up? What do you prefer? Because I'm getting a lot of questions asked. How do I sign up to get fiber?
So one thing, it didn't occur to us at the time, but last year we sent some of our summer interns out to kind of canvass the city and find out if people were willing to or interested in having their fiber optic services provided to them by LMU, by Whiskey City Fiber and Data. And we did that for a couple of reasons. We were trying to understand where the greatest needs were, where the densities were, so that when we started the construction process, we would kind of know where to focus and where to send the crews. It's occurred to me that a lot of those people that we talked to at their doors, the people that we canvassed, they assumed, and it's not a mistake on their part, we just, it's the first time we've done this, so we didn't communicate it very well. They thought that meant that when the fiber optics were ready, that they had signed a form and they were ready to be hooked up. And we've since had to go to great lengths to explain to people that that was just us seeking interest or seeking information based on their interest. But that if you actually want fiber optic services, you need to come into the office and you need to subscribe for them, just like you would water, sewer, anything else. And so we've been making efforts to rewrite that narrative, to talk with the customers, to send people out into the neighborhoods and to talk with them and further explain what the process is for people to come in. So the preference would be that they would come through the doors here at the office and that they would sign up for services just like they would if it was electrical and they were moving into an apartment or something like that. I will say that we're working on on the option of having our employees able to sign people up at their door and use the square cards to complete the transaction. So we're working on e-documents in order to do that, so that if people don't have time to come down here or they're busy or they're doing something else, because we realize, that people have jobs and it's not easy for them to come down. So we're trying to find other ways to simplify the process for them signing up for services.
Any other committee reports?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, new business. Mr. Kreider, review ordinances.
Good evening. My name is William Kreider, as you probably know. First of all, I'm going to read my remarks so I make sure that it's as clear as possible what I'm trying to say. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I would appreciate it if you just listen through this, and then if you have any questions, I'd appreciate waiting till the end, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have or clarifications. My wife, Pat, and I own 5 properties across the street from this building, from 211 Walnut to 231 Walnut. Over the past several years, we have spent a sizable amount of money to maintain and improve our buildings, including about $100,000 in the last 2 years for siding, roofing, and window repair on the Liberty Theater, primarily to maintain what we think is an important and iconic structure for our downtown. I hope you all agree. We've also spent a couple $100,000 renovating our other facilities. I share this information because I want you to realize that we have invested a great deal of our money in downtown Lawrenceburg. We think it's a good investment, but only if Lawrenceburg remains on the progressive path it has taken. I'm of German heritage, being a Kreider, and we're known to be a little frugal. Some would say cheap. But I'm interested in saving money. I'm also proud to be a techie and an environmentalist. So I attended a presentation given by Sister Claire Whalen. She's a sister from Oldenburg Academy who is part of the Indiana Solar Initiative. Her address to a group of us this past September got me thinking solar panels might work for one or more of our properties. I like the concept of using the sun as a source of electricity rather than burn coal or gas. Not polluting our atmosphere while saving money was an added bonus. I know we've had a few hot weeks, and I know the electrical grid has had a lot of pressure on it with all the air conditioners running. I think that I could be a partial solution to this situation, and I think you as the utility board can join me in that regard. I investigated and found that installing solar panels would work for the studio building and probably some others. I have a fairly low electrical bill on that building, so installing solar panels would save me about $55 a month. Not much in the grand scheme of things, but worthwhile. I might even be able to save a little money and at the same time do my part for the environment. My cost will be about $10,000. The payback under normal utility meter service charges would be about 8 years. I would stay on the LMU grid and use a net meter, which I'm sure you may be familiar with since you passed an ordinance that dealt with net metering. During the day, the sun would provide most of my electricity, and at night or on cloudy days like today, LMU would provide my electricity. Any excess I produced during the day would go back to the LMU grid for them to sell to their other customers. My installer is Micah Lorem of Lorem Electrical. Micah has installed several of these panels throughout the area. Unfortunately, Micah could not be here tonight. He's too busy installing solar panels. This is a prime time of the year. He has given me some information that I will share with you if you want. I wish he was here to answer any technical questions you may have. I'm not a electrical expert. So, before I committed to installing solar, I reviewed meter service charges for LMU customers. I also reviewed meter service charges for other communities in the area. You probably know this since you gentlemen as council members passed the ordinance, but here's a brief review. Residential meter service charges are about $7 a month, actually $6.07 a month, plus the cost of electricity you use. Businesses pay about $10 a month, actually $9 and I think it's 82 cents, plus the electricity they use. But what if you go on vacation or close the business for a month and use no electricity? If you use no electricity, you pay only the meter service fee. No doubt the meter service fees presented to you and City Council by Mr. Clausen, along with sales of electricity, are there to pay IMPA for electricity and maintain the electrical grid system. Here's my beef. After I have invested my own money in a solar system, the meter service charge goes from $7 to $10 a month to $50 a month. That's ludicrous. I understand that a net meter costs a little more than a regular meter, and I'm willing to pay that difference. I also know a net meter reverses direction when electricity is flowing from solar or LMU. Other than that, there is no difference. In an attempt to resolve these questions, I visited with Mr. Clausen. I explained that I thought charging $50 a month for net metering was unfair because LMU was incurring no more cost for a net meter than for a regular meter. Not only was Mr. Clausen unable to explain the added benefit to me for the additional cost or the additional cost of the utility that required a 500% increase in my meter service charge, but he informed me that I would need to purchase a net meter at a cost of $1,400. They are available for under $200, some as low as $55. They're probably more expensive than a regular meter because there are less of them produced, but obviously not $1,400. In addition, Mr. Clausen said an engineering study would have to be performed for my system at a cost of $2,400. I assure you, any information required would be provided by my contractor as part of the installation at no additional cost. I have a breaker box and wiring rated at 200 amps. I believe it's actually more than that. The solar system I plan to install would only produce 12.5 amps. Common sense engineering, not an engineering study, tells you the system can handle it. In addition, Mr. Lorem informed me the inverter is listed for UL 1741 and Rule 21, so it will shut down in the event of a utility outage. In other words, the safety features are present. What Mr. Clausen finally admitted was that he was trying to discourage me from competing with his utility, and somehow my $55 a month payment was necessary to maintain the electrical grid. Let's face it, LMU is a monopoly. I can't buy electricity from any other source, but I can produce my own and should be able to do so without these harassing tactics and added costs. That is the reason I'm here tonight. You are the Utility Service Board. You work for the people of Lawrenceburg and the customers of LMU. You do not work for Olin Clausen. He is required to advise you on what's best for LMU, but you can make your own decisions. Under normal circumstances, this matter would not be handled in a public meeting. It is not my preference. That's why I went to Mr. Clausen. If he was a reasonable man, we would have discussed the situation and found a potential solution, and then he would have brought the matter to you for discussion and final approval. He told me he would consider that action, but obviously has failed to do so as far as I know, so here I am. I am willing to invest my money for a solar system and get all necessary building permits required for such a system. I'm willing to buy a reasonably priced net meter and provide a schematic of the solar system showing output and safety measures to protect the grid. What I cannot justify, and I don't think Mr. Clausen can either, is an excessive charge for a replacement meter and an excessive charge for an engineering study. I'm willing to pay a reasonable meter service fee, just like everybody else. But paying LMU $50 a month when everybody else is paying $7 to $10 a month is unacceptable and unjustified. It constitutes unfair and obstructionist practices, basically to quell competition. I had a nice phone conversation with a spokesperson from IMPA. I asked her opinion of solar and other renewable resources. She informed me that, in fact, IMPA was investing in solar and, whether you know this or not, was interested in creating a solar farm here in Durban County. They just need to find enough property to be able to do it. They have it in several of the other counties that are part of the IMPA network. I asked why solar, and she answered with the same reasoning I've presented today. Solar means less use of coal or gas, fewer power plants, and less pollution. I suggest, instead of resisting and challenging those who embrace solar and wind, you as a board embrace it. In fact, the city of Lawrenceburg and Lawrenceburg Utilities can set the example. Lawrenceburg could use a portion of its revenue from Hollywood to invest in solar. A solar array on the roof of the stage at the new park would probably produce enough electricity to power the park. Municipal buildings and, dare I say, utility buildings could benefit from solar. So let's get started. Eliminate or waive the additional charges for someone investing his or her own money in support of a better Earth. Remember, LMU is owned by the citizens of Lawrenceburg. You are responsible to the citizens of Lawrenceburg, not just to its employees and not just its utility director. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Don't discourage a move toward solar or wind. Instead, take the lead and encourage businesses and individuals to invest their money for their benefit instead of sending utility dollars out of town to IMPA. I'm asking you to step forward and do something good for Lawrenceburg and for the environment. You can start by passing a resolution today to eliminate the net metering portion of the ordinance. In addition, you should assure that Mr. Clausen is prevented from charging exorbitant fees to projects such as mine. My project has been on hold since November of last year. I'm ready to invest another $10,000 in downtown Lawrenceburg. More investment may follow if you act appropriately. You have the power to embrace the future. I would ask you to please pass the resolution. In addition, I've received a letter today from Mr. Weldon concerning a public records request that I asked for. It says, enclosed, please find the budget documentation you asked for. That was not all I asked for. I asked for present and past minutes from that would document your review and council's review of the metering ordinances. According to him, we have conducted a search and found nothing that matches your requests. Please let me know if you have any questions. Oh boy, do I have questions. With that, if you have any questions for me, I would be more than happy to answer. And if you don't understand net metering, I have an excellent explanation of how it works and how it does benefit LMU. If there were several little power plants like mine, like my potential power plant, that would help the grid, that would help LMU avoid some of the potential disasters that exist. So I thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But please pass a resolution if you would and get this done.
Questions?
Yeah, just ask Olin, is that how Friendship Bank did theirs down there?
Which Friendship Bank?
In Lawrenceburg, the solar panels they have down there?
I don't believe we have any customers that are cogening in our service territory. If Friendship Bank's doing it, they've done it unbeknownst to us, which presents a substantial risk to both the system and the employees. So I'm unaware of Friendship Bank.
Like I thought they did. I'm not sure. I thought when
I
they built, they
don't
were putting
believe
solar
they
panels
do.
in. Okay.
Whitey's liquor store, obviously they have one on 50, has a full solar array. It was, they worked through IMPA to produce that situation. They are obviously in Greendale. As far as I know, they pay nothing. I talked to Brad Tebby today. He says he didn't think he has any cost whatsoever incurred by Greendale. I talked with Terry Butler, who has an installation in Greendale. He saves about $100 a month on his electric bill. I said, do you use the net metering? He said, no, I don't really care. And that's the case out at Whitey's. They don't really, and I wouldn't care whether the money went back or the meter went backwards or forwards. It's just that it would save on electrical costs. Brad said they approached the city of Lawrenceburg and apparently Olin to do a similar project here in Lawrenceburg and was pretty well discouraged, I would have to say. So I think it's It's something Lawrenceburg should be doing. They're doing it all over the world successfully. It's a really safe project. We don't need to be restrictive against such actions, and I think it's detrimental to Lawrenceburg to have that kind of attitude. It can only benefit the citizens, the people that you guys work for, and that Mr. Clausen works for, and I think it will benefit the grid here in Lawrenceburg, because if we had a bunch of little power plants, that's going to feed that grid. You don't have to buy out-of-town electricity from input or anybody else. So,
Bill, you mentioned 12 amps. Is that a misquote, or is that?
12.5 amps is the rating on that system. I have 10, and I will not, that's why I wanted Micah to be here, but I have planned for 10 solar panels. They're called Canadian solar panels. They would go on the roof of the studio, and that's what they would generate on I guess, a bright sunny day.
Each one of those would be 12 amps?
I don't think so. I think it's total. And it goes through an inverter. There's like a 3,000 watt capable. Yeah, it's not very much because I really don't use that much electricity. So, I don't know if I have the specs.
Looks like it, but
12 amps is such a small amount, and the only thing I'd caution you about is I would sure do a little research on doing all that work and putting it on my roof unless you have a brand new roof on there.
Well, the nice thing about it is it's a pretty good sturdy roof. Is that one of the advantages is that it does preserve your roof, because obviously you're putting a bunch of glass panels on top. They're fairly lightweight, though, nothing glass is going to be that lightweight. It says yours specifically is only 12.5 amps for the 3,000 watt inverter. I could easily handle a 42 amp solar inverter based on that 200 amps.
So I'll address a couple issues. I think probably the most important thing to understand is the rate that was passed, the net metering rate that was passed, was created by IMPA. They created that net metering rate. They presented it to all 72 communities that are customers that buy their power from IMPA. It was voted on by all the members of IMPA and approved. And so that's a common practice across the state of Indiana, and it's done so for several reasons. Number one, when solar systems come into your network and they hook up to it, it isn't just the simple thing that they hook up to your system. They're now generating electricity that has an effect on your system. What effects does it have? I don't know. But that's why we do an engineering study to determine that. Because the last thing that I want to do is ignore the possibility of an issue and inadvertently create one for the other customers that are served off that same line. Mr. Kreider stated that, on days like today that's cloudy, that these are the days that he'd have to have service from LMU. Well, guess what? All of that plant that all of you customers have invested in since 1901 came at a cost. And that cost, we recover that cost so we can continue to provide you with service, with maintenance, with replacement, with repair. And when customers come in and now want to generate electricity on your system and remove that revenue, it doesn't change the revenue requirements of the city. It just means that I now have to transfer those loss of revenues to the rest of you. So if enough people come into the system and start generating solar power, it means that the rest of the people who aren't generating solar power have to make up 100% of the cost, including that loss. So it raises your rates. So when I make decisions for the utility and for the utility customers, I try to think about everybody and not just the individuals that might be able to benefit in some way and save themselves a little money. there's also the physical requirement that I still have to maintain the transformer banks that are at Mr. Kreider's. I still have to maintain the wires that serve Mr. Kreider's. I still have to maintain all of the fixed and variable costs that are associated with Mr. Kreider's property. But now I'm not generating the revenue that I used to, which was the basis for being able to build the system in the first place. So look at the city of Phoenix, for example, in SRP. They charge a minimum customer rate of $120 to all the customers who generate solar in Phoenix, Arizona. And they do that because if they let those customers generate solar electricity without charging that rate, the utility would go bankrupt. I know I've heard a lot of things about this is in the best interest of the utility and in the best interest of the customers. It's not. Secondarily, the solar parks that IMPA builds, they're behind the meter utility scale power plants, which means it's part of our purchase power agreement with IMPA. So while it does reduce demands, it doesn't reduce our costs. Our cost of power is just the same. Our contract with IMPA doesn't change. And the suggestion that we could put a bunch of solar plants out there and start producing our own power, I have news for you. We have a contract with IMPA that goes out to 2042 that is all powers required contract, which means I cannot legally buy power from somebody else. I cannot buy power generated by somebody else. I have to buy power from IMPA. And so I'm sure from Bill's perspective, these things are obstructionist, and he's free to have that feeling. I will push back on the fact that I wasn't being obstructionist, Bill. I gave you the example that you own a photography studio. And what if somebody came into town with their camera and wanted to come use your studio, use your backdrops, use all the things in your building, but they didn't want to pay anything for it? You didn't like the example, but the example's true. Why would we invite another company in to take our customers and our revenue?
I'll give you an answer when you finish.
I let you talk.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, they're going to come in and use our system that we have built since 1901 and invested millions and millions of dollars in order to serve those customers. And I still have the obligation to continue to serve those customers even though I don't get the revenue anymore. So there are a multitude of reasons why we ask for the things we ask. The engineering study is absolutely imperative. Nobody should be able to hook anything to this system without us looking at it, understanding what the equipment is, understanding the effects it has on the system. That's imperative.
If somebody wanted to rent my photographic studio, they can rent my photographic studio. I know that I have a certain amount of investment, and I would take a portion of that investment. I wouldn't have them replace my entire investment by their rental fee. I would charge them an hourly rate, and your wife or anybody else is welcome to do that. Any other photographer. I don't have any, I'm not restricting my business to any other competition, but that's what LMU is doing, and that's why that's the value of a monopoly that has allowed them to pay since when, 1901 for this infrastructure. Hopefully it's paid for by now. Why you would sign a contract that doesn't end until 1942 or 2042, I don't have any idea, but apparently you did. I don't think my installing 10 panels on my roof is going to make any difference whatsoever to the grand scheme of things in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. I think if it would catch on, it would be fantastic. We would all be able to pat ourselves on the back and say, hey, we're helping the environment, we're eliminating the costs that we send to IMPA, and we're eliminating coal. Maybe we can eliminate a power plant, and we're not polluting the environment as much as we have in the past. Those are all good things. I don't know why you would argue against it. I would think that this board in this city would encourage such things. It's progressive. It is not going to have a great, what I do is not going to have a great impact on this city or this system. If it did, fantastic. I think we'd all be happy about it, except maybe Mr. Clausen. He's going to lose, he may lose some revenue. Right now he's going to lose well, he was gonna lose $55 a month. If you keep this net metering fee in there, he's gonna gain that $50 a month for no reason whatsoever. He's not gonna give me anything more than he gives anybody else for either $6 or $7 or $10 a month. So I'm asking you to look at it as a practical, in a practical fashion. And I don't know, and the reason I asked for minutes is, have you ever seen this piece of paper, this whole net metering charge, or residential service tariff, or commercial service tariffs?
Yes,
I've seen a net metering for sure.
yes.
Okay, I mean, you passed it, so obviously you must have studied it, and you understand what goes into it, and you understand the cost of these service fees and the benefit to having them.
And part of that matrix, Bill, is the anticipation of electrical sales to those customers. That is part of the expectation. And so when you reduce your purchase.
You have no cost. You have no, if I buy
No, that's-
nothing,
that's
if I
not
buy
true.
nothing, you have no cost to me.
Excuse me,
Go, Mel.
Bill,
Yeah,
Mel Davis, friend and past utility director, okay? You still have cost. You have to maintain your system. Olin, or the utility company, has to if you don't use a drop of water, not one drop, okay? Let's put it that way. We still have to maintain the pipes and the meter that goes to your facility, right? Correct?
I guess so, yeah.
Well,
Unless I dig it out of the ground like, it was done in the past.
And we still have to produce the water. Okay? So the facilities you said are paid for. Well, it's a continuing pay because you continually have to upgrade your transformers. If you lose one transformer out there, they have to replace it. If a wire falls down, they have to replace it. When the poles rot, like I'm doing, you have to replace it. And the same way with cross arms and whatever else you have up there. And so there's a cost associated with that. Now, as far as the meter that you can buy for $200, I think you said,
Or less.
any utility company has their own specification for meters, period.
I know that. That's what I look for.
I can buy a house meter for a couple bucks, but it's not what they specify.
No, I asked for the specific meter that we're using on
Okay.
our building.
Okay.
Only
And
net
the
metering.
The inverter that supposedly shuts off if there's an outage, okay? They have to make sure that it shuts off. Because if that's still generating, transformers are just a stupid piece of equipment, okay? So if that keeps generating and sending electricity out to the grid, for example, if that inverter doesn't work, then that goes through the transformer backwards and still energizes that line.
Yeah, 13.5
Yeah,
amps.
so there has to be a study done to make darn sure that inverter is proper. Otherwise, there have to be a transfer switch put on.
Yeah, what Mel's saying is your 120 volts into the transformer on your secondary service produces 12,470 volts on the high side of our transformer. And there have been many cases, where the power has been knocked out. Someone's generating power themselves. There's not a physical separation between them and the system. And the lineman's gone up there thinking the line was dead because the entire town's out and it's been electrocuted.
Right.
We had an example of this just in this last winter with the ice storms and the cooperatives. So it may not seem like a big deal to you that we do these kinds of studies and those kinds of things,
Seriously? Go ahead.
but seriously, it's the life and safety of my employees. And I'm not going to just take your salesman's word for that.
He's not a salesman, he's a installer. This is the inverter. Integrated arc fault protection and rapid shutdown for NEC 2014 and 2017 per Article 690.11 and 690.12. It's a UL approved inverter. I don't know if you have any on your system now. Any inverters, any reverse
No, we have
type?
transfer, we have
If,
tran-
I would not, like I said, I don't care if, it would be great if we could just be off the grid, we could buy batteries, but batteries are too expensive. And then we wouldn't have to worry about the
Right.
reverse
I
at
understand.
all. It's a very unlikely prospect, and yes, I am concerned for the safety and well-being of your linemen, as well as other people that might be working on the electric. I don't do things half-assed, so if it requires a inverter that can absolutely guarantee that it'll happen, then that's what we go for. That's why we spent the kind of money that we have on these buildings. We don't do piecemeal. Yes, I'm frugal, but I do want to get my money's worth. So,
Let me give you an example, Bill.
and I know what you're talking about, Mel. I know that it needs to stop. I believe that the safety controls are in there,
We
and they
have,
will.
For example, at the water plant, we have, I think, 2 generators out there. We had to buy transfer switches that cost, I forget now, but more than $10,000 that shut off.
So they do shut off.
When there's an outage, they shut down. The generator won't start until that transfer switch is shut down. So you have to have the safety factor built in, and and if that inverter works, that's wonderful. But somebody other than this utility board has to look at it to make darn.
You need assurance that that inverter is the right inverter, that the system is the right inverter, that will not damage the LMU grid. I agree. I do not want to, in fact, there's some kind of insurance policy that has to be had. I mean, the restrictions are incredible, but there's an insurance policy as part of that that I'm not sure you all are aware of that goes along with installing solar. And I'm willing to do those things. What I'd like to do is get you all on board, which it doesn't sound like it's going to happen,
Well-
because I don't think you either understand it or appreciate the benefits of it.
I think I understand.
that's
it,
too bad.
and I do appreciate the benefits, but there are certain things, safeguards, that you, the customer, has to prove to the utility company.
And I plan to do that. I don't plan to have Olin Clausen give me his opinion or his engineering study at $2,400, but I'll certainly provide any answers that are required to assure that it's a safe system.
Well, the only
Well,
way
Mel, there's a couple
for
things.
me is either I would test it myself, or I would have an engineering study done that would prove it.
Fine. This
And
gentleman has
that's the
installed
point.
hundreds of systems. It's not
Okay,
not something new to him.
I understand, but
If it's,
I'm just telling you what the process.
I understand.
You're talking about a couple things here. There's a liability issue. I'm unwilling to accept some third party or somebody else's critique of the system and accept that liability,
Why?
because I'd be
You don't
foolish.
trust anybody else but yourself?
No,
or
no, no,
your-
no. I don't even trust myself to make the judgment. I do trust having a third party, disinterested engineering firm critique that system to make sure that it doesn't affect the customers or present a situation that's dangerous to the employees or the homeowner. I do, because if they fail and they give me the wrong analysis, I have recourse. That's why we do that. And secondly, the one thing you'll find out about solar is for the people who can afford to put the panels on their roof and do those kinds of things, fantastic. But you know who it's most harmful on? The low-income folks, because it
Oh my
pushes their
God.
price up. That's a fact, Bill. I'm sorry it's not convenient, but that's a fact. The low-income people are the ones who have the hardest time with cities. I'll give you an example. Hawaii. Hawaii even though it's a federal law, Hawaii has forbidden their customers from putting solar panels up because they've done so much of it. Their electrical cost to the rest of the customers have gone up to 49 cents a kilowatt hour. We pay 10.3 here. KUA in Florida.
You pay more for peak, or do you just?
No, we
it's
pay,
always
we
the
pay a
same?
flat rate. KUA in Kissimmee, Florida. They have such a problem with people going out and hooking up solar panels illegally to their system and generating electricity during the day that they have had a financial shortfall that is could potentially bankrupt that utility. That's where Orlando's located. They provide power to Disneyland. This is a major company. And that's the kind of problems that happen. So while the guy who's pushing solar and loves solar and wants to talk about all these things that are beneficial for solar in his industry that he's in, that's great. But we have to look at the reality of the situation. It isn't all upside. It isn't just that easy.
You're not looking at the reality. You're looking at the negative side of it. You're not actually looking at it as a broad spectrum.
I think solar's fantastic. I would love for IMPA to be able to find a piece of property around here where we could do behind the meter solar.
Well, I have a potential piece of property that they would be interested
I think it'd be fantastic to have that. But it's not going to affect my cost. We're going to be providing green energy, sure. That's great. But it doesn't lower my bills.
You don't care about the environment, the negative impact on the environment?
Are you going to talk about the green power program?
No. But so we can't stop somebody from doing this, though, right?
Oh, no, we could.
But we can. Oh, we can?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If they
State
don't-
law has actually exempted utilities, municipal utilities, from having to participate in the solar programs.
Okay,
They-
I thought you gave him a set of stipulations, and if you met
Well,
those
there's a set of
stipulations.
stipulations, but part of that means that he's willing to pay the costs associated with that. Because when you put a solar system on your building, you just became a more expensive customer to serve. We're not getting the revenues that we anticipated out of you. Matter of fact, in our general terms and conditions, when somebody wants to come in and do a three-phase service, 120, 240 volts or 240, 480, there's a requirement in there that they purchase a set amount of power per month. Mel, you've seen it. I didn't create that. That's been here for probably before you were here, Mel. And the reason they do that is those transformer banks are expensive, and putting them in place is expensive. And we would be fools to go out and say, we're going to put all this money in the air and invest all this money, and you're just going to buy power for 3 or 4 weeks or 3 months or a year and go out of business. We'll never get our money back out of that. It'd be a bad investment. And so there's actually a requirement that customers who get three-phase service from us guarantee a minimum amount of purchase power per month so we can justify the investment. It's a very complicated thing, but it's...
Right. Doesn't sound as easy as it is to me. I get it. But, so wouldn't it make sense then either the utility allows it or they
we
don't
allow it. We absolutely allow it. But
They
we
just
allow
want to charge 500% more than they charge everybody else.
We allow it.
And I'm gonna get to the metering thing. I don't know, but
We allow it under
That's
the
the only
conditions that were
action.
set forth and recommended to us and approved by this utility service board by IMPA.
right.
And they have 59 communities out there, and the vast majority of them, if they have a solar ordinance, are doing exactly what we're doing. And this is based off of many countless studies that were done to see what the financial impacts would be to people who put solar on the system, because they knew that if there were a wave of people that put solar on a system, it could potentially cause the utilities to have to raise prices and affect the people who are most susceptible.
And IMPA is making that decision. They're a monopoly as well. They're a multiple monopoly, but obviously because you can only buy power from them apparently. So they're a monopoly as well. They made a business decision to prevent competition so that they could stay in business. I
No,
think you need to look at it
that's not
from
accurate,
what
Bill.
is best for Lawrenceburg.
Look, public power, IMPA, LMU, the thing that we're most interested in is providing the most affordable quality service and reliable service that we can to the customers. Yeah, I mean, people want to call us monopoly, fine, but the fact of the matter is,
You are.
there are only 4, maybe 5 utilities in the state of Indiana, in the entire state, that sell electricity for less than we do. And the differences are 0.2 cents, 0.3 cents. It's not like they're selling it for 6 cents a kilowatt hour and we're just so out of line at 10.3. The cooperatives are charging 14, 15, 20. We are one of the most affordable utilities in the state of Indiana. We're the 6th most, according to the last data I looked at. And not only do we do that, we've been rated by the Department of Energy as one of the best utilities in the state, in the United States. Less than 1% of the utilities in the United States receive the designation from the Department of Energy that we did. So we provide reliable service. When the power goes out, we're there, we fix it. And we do that, and we're one of the cheapest utilities in the state of Indiana. So I guess if we're a monopoly, we're a monopoly, but we're not a very good one because we're not very abusive in our terms of our cost.
Well, when you're charging 500% more per month
Bill, I
to
gotta
somebody,
ask you-
I don't mind paying the $10 or whatever for commercial.
How much do batteries cost for your unit?
It would add probably another $5,000 to $8,000.
How
There's $5,000 to $8,000 because those, it's like either those Tesla batteries or a number of other things. You can obviously string a bunch of car batteries together and probably produce enough power, but that would be silly.
Okay, do you
So-
operate much at night?
No.
Disconnect from the meter?
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to disconnect. I'd love to have two systems, but I don't think that's fair to either of us. I don't care about the net meter going backwards. I'm not gonna. I don't care whether I sell, so to speak, power to LMU. I just would like to be able to generate my own power.
Okay.
And the net metering is required only because you need to be able to go backwards and frontwards. So
Okay.
you have that inverter and you can shut it off
Okay.
in case they fail, which LMU is going to fail, you know,
Okay,
at some point.
listen to my thought. If you don't operate it in the evening, you only operate in the daytime, correct? Okay. Put up your solar panels, disconnect from the utility completely, and buy a Honda generator to set as your backup.
Oh, I thought about that when he cut me off at one point. That's another issue that Aaron has addressed, unfortunately.
But I mean,
That was another way to do it, is not just totally get off the grid altogether and either do battery or generator power.
just say, I don't want the service anymore.
That is an option, but it's an expensive option and not one that my business sense would allow.
Well, a
So,
Honda generator only costs $500, maybe,
yeah, makes noise, pollutes the atmosphere, you know.
if it runs.
Mhm.
Why not?
I don't mind contributing to LMU.
It's one of
At
those
night.
little generators that you go like that and it starts, you know.
That's certainly a solution, but not one that I want to pursue.
Oh, and that's our approximate cost for the meter, $1,400.
I'd have to look and get an exact.
Where'd that
quote on
come from? Where'd you get $1,400? What's a regular meter cost?
but The regular
Under
meter-
$100?
No, it costs
$150?
about $200 for regular meter.
Okay.
The three-phase meters, like what you have at your place, those cost me
I don't have a three-phase meter.
$1,440.
That's where you're wrong. I don't have a three-phase meter. I think you said that before, that I have a
Well-
three-phase meter.
Your studio is single phase, right?
Yeah.
Any other questions up here?
I do have just one comment. Crystal's working on the green energy program that we rolled out. And people who are concerned about the environment, we can provide them with green energy through an agreement that we have with IMPA. There's an increased cost for that, but that's because there's an increased cost for IMPA to provide.
We're working on the ordinances at the moment. They will be brought before the Utility Service Board for approval.
Okay, a correction of this ordinance, or, which you
No,
probably have in front of you because I was on the agenda of the ordinance review, but I think it's 5-0 and,
Net metering ordinance, the best I remember, was passed 2006 or 7, something, because the state required us to pass that.
yeah. Well, only thing I'm asking is reduce that cost to what is reasonable, not 500% over
So
Whatever
you're still willing to pay whatever the meter cost would be, whether it be 14 or 12, whatever you that and the study then?
He can justify a $1,400 meter, then I'll buy a $1,400 meter. If I can find the same meter for $120 or $200 or $250 and can prove that that's equivalent to the meter that he has chosen, then that's what I'll pay.
Okay. Because I'm all for the green energy, but as long as LMU recoups their costs, like the study and the meter, then I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any problem with them recouping their cost, but
And what I can do, what I would advise this board to do, is that I can get John Wolfram to come in and show you exactly what the cost would be associated to the low-income customers.
Yep.
If we started segueing into solar without collecting that higher minimum monthly
And you
fee.
have to buy a different meter.
And
base.
that way, everybody's fully appraised
You have
as
to
to
buy a
what the
different meter
results and
base.
what the
So
fallout could be.
There's gonna be some work there on the meter base, somebody has to do.
Yeah, but there's every action that you take,
Yeah.
there's a consequence.
Yeah.
And I just want the board to be fully appraised of what that consequence is, so that somewhere down the road, someone doesn't ask why they weren't informed, why they didn't know.
I think.
and I don't think there's going to be a groundswell of support and everybody's going to turn to solar. I think he's painting a very negative picture for LMU. This is Lawrenceburg. People kind of do their own thing. Some will go along maybe, and more than likely not. They're gonna do what's best for them. And all I'm asking is my little system, at least try it. Just see and use it as a test case if you want, but it would be a test case for me as well, to see, because I have, my dream would be to, I have a 127-year-old building across the street that we put a lot of money into. My dream would be that would be totally self-sufficient. There is plenty of roof space, and there's plenty of roof space around town. That's why I mentioned the park, to generate electricity at almost no cost. So I'm asking you to consider it, and if possible, I do have I think I'm on the agenda for the next council meeting. I'll be glad to come back then, but I would appreciate it if you would seriously consider this as a move in the right direction. So I thank you.
Olin, you think that study be ready for the next utility board meeting?
Without talking with John, I can't answer that. I can
Okay.
call him tomorrow and I can get
Well,
back
I'm
to him.
gonna make a motion, if I could, Mayor, that we table this until that study's complete.
Okay. Table on the floor, or a motion on the floor to table the solar, is it an actual ordinance?
It's an actual ordinance, yes.
The solar ordinance until the study is completed, which could be by next month, but
Sure,
could
I'll
be.
let you know tomorrow.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion will carry. Thank you. All right, next item is Mr. Clausen bottled water allotment.
Yeah, I got back from vacation and had several employees come to me and make me aware that apparently they've been taking water from upstairs in this building, municipal building, and that's no longer allowed. And so I'd like to be able to add a line item to our budget to be able to provide water to the people who come through the door, whether it be customers or employees or whoever.
I can shed a little light on that because the person that suggested that was myself, and the reason for it. I peeked in, they were having a staff meeting, I think, when you were on vacation, and I peeked into the conference room and just said, hey guys, you might want to consider start ordering some cases of water down to your break area, just like they do upstairs. That way, number one, they wouldn't have to come up there and get them, but then we wouldn't have to worry about if we ran out, if somebody came up and took the last case of water, we didn't know it, you run out, and then you don't know it until after you do. That was the only reason for doing that. There was nothing about anybody coming upstairs. I could care less who comes upstairs and puts their hand in the refrigerator, at all. It was just basically a suggestion to have it downstairs. Number one, it'd make it a lot easier on them. And it's sitting right over here at Civil City. They could bring it over when they bring everybody's over. It's not it's not an issue like that.
It's going to be hard to separate anyway because there's other people that aren't utilities downstairs too. So how you gonna separate it out then? If you're gonna separate it,
Well, it's all coming out of the same money.
we just talking about adding a line item to the.
I think that's ridiculous.
I heard about even before Olin. I didn't even mention it to Olin, but I heard about this probably like a month and a half ago. But not only water, but coffee and everything from an employee.
And I don't know where that came from either. All I can think about is a person came upstairs one morning. I think I may have even said it very jokingly, was something about put a quarter in a cup for coffee or something. But I tell that everybody that walks in there, it doesn't matter if you're upstairs, downstairs, or from the street. It was a joke.
Why don't we just put vending machines in for water and coffee? I mean, I don't know why we had to supply all the water to everybody anyway for free.
Well, I don't think it needs to be a big deal. I just made a suggestion. That was it.
Well, and the only reason I added it as an agenda item is because as it was related to me by the employees, some of which are in the room, that it was a big deal to them, and they felt like they don't deserve to be in the building, and it kind of spread through my employees and affected morale, and I want to talk about it and deal with it because the coffee was another issue, and I'm shocked I'm even have to talk about this, but that was another issue, and the carpeting for the downstairs. We're fine to pay for the carpet in the downstairs of the building. That doesn't bother me. It just seems like my employees feel that they're being subjected to criticisms and critique that are unwelcomed, and I don't know if that's accurate, but I just want to have a conversation about it so we can figure it out. I have an obligation to look after them and take up the concerns.
Well, I agree. I mean, I'm not agreeing with them feeling unwanted. I make it a point to go around and say hi to everybody in the morning, whether it's upstairs, downstairs, or wherever. So I'm not trying to push anybody out of this building. This is a ridiculous item to bring up, as well as the next item on the list. And Olin, I asked you, I said, why don't you come talk to me? You and I can figure these things out. And that didn't happen. You said you would bring it before the USB.
That's correct, because
listen, I think that, there are a couple of people in this room that were in that room at the time, and I will not call them out to get their opinion on it. But if they have a problem with me making them feel unwanted, I would assume that either one of those individuals would come and talk to me if they so choose.
Well, I just feel that discussing these things in the public is the best way. That way, things can't be misconstrued, people can't be misquoted, and we can solve the issue. I think public
This
debate.
isn't a policy, Owen. Yeah, policies should be talked about in public.
Okay.
If there's an issue with the day-to-day stuff, does not need to be talked in public. You and I could have solved these situations. That's all I'm saying. I have no problem working with you on these things.
This whole thing's ridiculous. Bottled water allotment. I'll go back to what I said before. Don't buy any water. Put vending machines in. They can buy their water.
I don't disagree with that, Mr. Abbott.
So,
Well,
you guys want to do something with this? I'll entertain a motion.
I mean, I don't know how the motion would be, but I mean, if we're getting 2 cases of water now, I'd get 4 or a vending machine, either one, I'm fine with. It's just, so everybody's welcome to water, or everybody has to pay for it, everybody's equal.
Water, there's no issues with the water.
Then grown men work it out.
Yep.
I'm a little bit old-fashioned, I guess. I would bring a glass and put ice cubes in it and get it some of the finest water in the state of Indiana. But that's just me.
Well, I can tell you right now, the second worst job for getting kidney stones is being a lifeguard. It's only second to roofing. And you know what? Them lifeguards don't get free water over there. They're able, and they're 16 years old, and they're able to bring their own darn water or get it out of the faucet.
Well, over at Civil City, it's a little different matter, and I'm surprised over at the pool, but, you know, there is some safety OSHA standards about water in certain areas. And if it's coming from, you know, I don't wanna cut off the water at Civil City, we got a lot of guys going out on the lawnmowers. So, and also, the big coolers aren't favored by OSHA anymore. So the bottled water's our preference at Conservancy. But I say that it gets worked out, and if it pops up again, I'm gonna back Tony up on a motion of vending machines here in the office, and they can buy it or bring it. We'll put 2 in, or we'll put 1 in downstairs, and they can walk up and down and get it. But for right now, I just soon see things get worked out and have it worked out.
It'll get worked out.
I can't wait for the next one.
Local ordinances on parking.
Here's my suggestion. I'll throw it out right now. All employees park in that parking lot over there. Leave these spots and these spots for customers. That should take care of everything.
Customers and visitors.
Customers and visitors. We've got a second parking lot over there, and it's only a 50-foot walk. And nobody's fighting over parking spots.
I think that's a great suggestion, and what we were seeking is just some guidance on how to address it.
Tony, I would like to add to that. I think if we do the far parking lot for employees, then I would like to have, because I see it everywhere I go, I think the mayor, the utility director, and certain people, and I don't know who those people ought to be, should have an assigned parking spot.
That'd be fine with me. Clerk treasurer.
Department heads, I guess, is parking over there. And for back here where they always park, and then keep this for handicap, in between here for handicap visitors and customers.
I think that'd be easily worked out.
Okay. Anything else under new business?
No, Your Honor.
Old business, Greg, Queen City Candy?
Thank you. There was as you may recall, I think we talked about it earlier, there was a proposal where there was going to be some provision of electrical service by LMU to Queen City Candy while Greendale did some improvements to its system. That has morphed into, as we understand it now, a request and some terms presented by Greendale as a request for us to provide backup service. Just wanted to talk about that with you in the open. I'll let Olin kind of talk to you about the physical logistics of how that could or could not work.
So if you recall, Steve Lampert came in to Utility Service Board some months ago and requested that we be willing to provide services to Queen City Candy for a period of up to a couple years. Under what was proposed that night, Queen City Candy would have been our customer, and we would have at any time, and Greendale would have paid all the costs associated with serving the customer, so all the improvements, the metering, the transformer, everything. And they would do that so that any time after we took over that customer and provided service, they could take them back and we would not have a stranded cost. We wouldn't have a stranded asset. They paid the tab in full, they would owe us nothing, they could take their customer back. So that's what was presented to us. Somewhere along the way, and I don't know where, the proposal changed. And when I talked with Steve again, it became, well, you're going to provide service to our customer out of Hollywood Substation. You're going to use Lawrenceburg's lines and all those kinds of things, but they're not going to be your customer, they're going to be ours, and we're going to pay you a percentage of the line loss. That's just simply, that's a ridiculous request.
The percentage of the line lost, not metered?
Yeah, it means they get the cell, the electrical cells, and all we get is some calculation of the estimated line loss, which could be a few $100s a year or something like that, but I tie up a substation that cost us several $1 million to build. It's the same substation that feeds Hollywood Casino. We put the wear and tear on the equipment. We put the wear and tear on the line. Lawrenceburg linemen still have to respond and take care of the problems when there's problems. And for that, we get a small percentage of the line loss, 2% of the line loss.
Well, I don't know who suggested that, but that's just stupid.
It's a ridiculous request. And so it turned into, well, we would like for you to provide backup power. Well, in talking with the folks at Greendale, backup power was really defined by, we want you to go ahead and provide power for the first year and a half, 2 years under this premise of line loss. And then we'll take it over and you'll provide us with a backup. So in case they lose service up there, we'll take over. The problem with that is, even if the Utility Service Board mandated me tonight to provide backup power to Queen City Candy, it is a physical impossibility. There's one power transformer located in Greendale that serves both Lawrenceburg and Greendale. When that power goes out, neither Lawrenceburg or Greendale can provide service to anybody.
Hold on, question.
Okay?
How do you provide backup power to your water plant?
We don't.
Generators, right?
Generators, that's it.
Let them buy a generator if they want backup power.
To your point, there is a line that comes in from Greendale to the South Dearborn Regional Sewer District power plant.
Yeah.
But every time we lose power, Greendale's line goes out too.
Yeah.
There isn't two forms of power being supplied here. We don't have two separate sources. We have a single source that we share.
Yeah.
So when Greendale's out of power, we're out of power.
So the way that works is the energy comes into the Greendale sub up by their fire station. Okay. From there, the transformer transforms it into a lower voltage that feeds our substation, substations, and Greendale substation. So when that's out, it's all out. Now, if Greendale has a local outage, that's Greendale's problem. Shouldn't be our problem. And what I would suggest to Greendale is that if that customer demands backup power, then maybe Greendale could help them buy a backup generator and include the cost of that on their electric bill. That's a safe way to back it up.
Can you explain to me why Greendale's even talking to us about power?
Well, yeah, because if I'm speaking frankly, Greendale doesn't have the ability right now to provide service to the customer. The whole reason they came to us in the first place was because Queen City Candy was going to relocate to Texas. And the only way that they could convince them, compel them to stay here, is if they could meet the power requirements that they have. Well, under their current system and their current distribution system, they can't do that. And so Steve called me one day and said, could you guys provide power to this customer? So we looked at it, did a cursory study, and said, yeah, we can. On
a temporary basis?
Temporary, yeah. We would take them over temporary. Like I said, they'd pay all the costs. We'd give the customer back anytime they ask for it back because it's their customer. But for whatever time period that we provided services, the revenue would come to us because it's our equipment that's at risk. And that was the premise that he presented here that night. And however it morphed into other things, I can't begin to tell you, but the only reason I believe they're asking for us to step in and do the backup piece is because that would obligate us to build certain pieces of equipment in place to provide service, and then we'll end up providing service at this 2% line loss rate. And that's just not fair to the rest of the customer base.
Greg, let me ask you a question. Has this contract been proposed by someone?
There was a term sheet recently proposed by Greendale for this backup power provision. That's why it was important that Olin talked with IMPA to the extent that there was some other alternative. We haven't been made aware of any other alternative other than what Olin has told you.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem like,
Have we signed any agreement
No.
for this?
no, they,
And we're
they-
not under
Let's
any.
just tell Greendale to supply their power to their candy store.
that's what I was gonna say. If that's the reaction of the board and the decision of the board, we just ought to make a motion at this point in time, not to conduct negotiations on backup power, for the Greendale Queen City Candy.
Well, and before I addressed any of this with Nick Kyle, I called Raj at IMPA and had a conversation with him, and I said, Raj, the way that I see this is asking me to provide backup power is an impossible request, and he just chuckled because he said, you're right. There's no way to provide backup if the transformer goes down, because it feeds you both.
Well, that's why I suggested that Greendale buy a backup generator, help Queen City buy a backup generator, and include the payment for that cost on their electric bill until it's paid for. That's been done 10,000 times over utility systems. Okay, because
I will tell you that, you know, some of the when Steve asked us to do this and the board approved it, we went ahead and spent about 60 grand to improve the lines going into the fairgrounds.
yeah,
So we had a crews go over, we changed the poles out, we reconductored so that we could provide these services, under the premise that this was gonna be our customer for a period of time, and that Greendale was gonna pay these costs. And I told Steve, I said, look, Lawrenceburg's we're gonna own this asset, and it's really our system we're improving. So I'm not gonna ask you to pay the 60,000, but I will ask you to pay 25. I think that is an appropriate amount that you guys should pay for the benefit. And he agreed. He went to his board, got approval for that payment. Everything was done. And then they changed the playing field to where now it's just this percent of line loss.
I would send them that 25,000 back. Tell them we don't want nothing to do with it. And then if they want to come back and make an agreement, we can sit down and talk about it.
We haven't gotten the 25.
To that point, I told them, don't worry about the money. We've improved our system. It's a benefit to the people here in Lawrenceburg. It's a benefit to the whole park area and, you know, the cat fields. I said, we're not asking for the money back, but we're not gonna get involved in your power problems. It's your problems to fix.
That's the way I'd leave it.
And so just,
Kelly, could you explain to me the bond? Didn't we just try to help Greendale with a fairly large bond for the
Yeah,
electrical system?
Yeah, they got a low interest loan actually through the bond bank to upgrade their electrical system. Part of this probably is that, I guess.
It is.
That's part of the time period
I
you're
think,
talking about?
Yeah.
and I'm gonna have to say this because I think that I don't know if Steve misspoke or what he did. I don't know. Maybe he did change horses midstream. I don't know what happened there. But I mean, I've known Steve Lamper for 45 years. I don't think he would intentionally try to mislead Lawrenceburg.
Mm-hmm.
no one's saying that.
So, I don't think you were saying that. I'm just saying that I don't think he would ever do that. Obviously, I don't understand the line use percentage piece of it. But personally, I mean, if there's a way we could have helped Greendale, I think we were gonna do it. It sounds like there's no way to get backup
What is a backup supplier?
supply. I don't know all that technical stuff like you guys, but
And I don't think Steve was
No.
trying to mislead.
I don't
What I
think-
think happened is when Steve made it known to his people that customer was gonna be our customer, I think that made them nervous. because Steve even mentioned, well, how do we know you're going to give them back to us, you know? And the people that were, you know, on that committee, I don't know who those people are, that they were concerned that, well, Lawrenceburg will just keep them. And I talked with Greg about it, said, look, we can write the strongest language possible in there, that they have absolute control and say over that customer, and they can have them back at any time. I'm willing to sign anything that says when they want them back, it's theirs. To help them, you know, dispel those feelings. But it just,
Yeah, just propose that to them, that we will provide backup power and call them our customer until Greendale is prepared to take them over. And at that point in time, we will relinquish that customer.
I believe in form and substance, that's what we discussed with Greendale, and I think that for whatever reason, and no one's saying that there's any
And
malfeasance or
if they
intentional
want-
wrongdoing, they've decided that they have a different need now, and,
well, and also, I was told that the timelines associated with Queen City coming online were pushed out by a period of 6 months or so.
Okay.
And so I think in their minds, they thought, well, with the timelines being pushed out for Queen City, maybe we could, with the money that they got from us, maybe we could provide service to our customer. And so they may very well be able to do that. But I think that it was just a culmination of all these things that changed the deal enough to where now, you know, we were just going to do the percentage of lost energy.
And the issue of backup supply, as we understand it, and as Paul has discussed it with IMPA, does not seem to be a physical, you know, possible possibility. So,
Like I said, Greg, one of the other towns I work for, we helped a company buy a generator because we as a utility could get it cheaper than they as a company could, and we just put the cost of that on their electric bill. And over a period of years, they paid it off. It was real simple to do, you know. Sometimes you have to think out of the box.
Mayor, I'm not sure how you want to close this out. I would recommend maybe just a motion that we're not interested in negotiating a backup power supply agreement at this time.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
So the motion on the floor is to relay to Greendale that at this point in time, not interested in providing backup power?
Yes.
Correct.
Second?
Second, I did.
All those in favor?
No.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, HVAC quotes for the water department.
Thank you, Your Honor. In your packets, we discussed a couple meetings ago, maybe 3 meetings ago, the fact that we had an AC unit that is failing at the water department. In your package, you're going to see the estimates that we were given to replace that unit. It's approximately $87,000. It's a contractor that's familiar with the property, familiar with the systems. It is under the threshold that would require us to solicit formal bids on the project. I do know that in talking with Andy and the other vendors that we were speaking with, this seems to be the lowest price for an elevated, in terms of quality product. So I just seek your approval to go ahead and move forward on this unit for the water plant.
This particular unit, Owen, or solicit bids?
Just particular unit.
All right, any questions?
Yeah, I didn't understand what you said. You said it is at the price where you had to.
No, it's under the threshold
It's
where,
under.
yeah, it's under the threshold where we'd be required to.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we, let the staff move forward with this.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion will carry. Any other old business?
No, Your Honor.
I just have one thing, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I just want to thank Colin or Olin, whoever put in the packet for the rodeo revenues and expenses again this month. Yeah,
What's that?
Yeah, I don't know who prepares it, but it's in here again. I appreciate it.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
All right. Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to pay the claims.
Move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion will carry. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tony always motions to adjourn, you know that?
You had questions on me last meeting, so there, I better step right there. Oh, we can play this.
Yeah.
You questioned me on that one.
I'll talk to him tomorrow.
Good, how are you? Oh, no, we appreciate the money. I noticed, on his, party thing. No,